Okay, we're back. Now we're going to go with method number 2, and this is a special type because we're going to fit these speaker kits, the LOK 50321, we're going to put them into a BC rail engine. Now, like I mentioned earlier on the other video, is that we're limited with how much space we have because of the rear classification lights and the number board lights. Okay, now this is a model that came with no sound, so here's just the plain old DC plug, obviously no speaker. A friend of mine, Todd, has lent me this locomotive so I can do a video on it. He was good enough to also pick up the LOK speaker kit directly from Bowser. They sell a kit where you can buy a preloaded 21-pin decoder with the sound already loaded on it. It comes with a speaker, and it also comes with a chamber. We're not going to use that because we're going to go with our LOK speaker kits. Okay, now because of the classification lights, the LEDs here, we have to stay within this area right here, obviously. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to build the kits, and we will have to remove the posts here in order to fit the 2 speakers in. All right, now I've already gone out and dumped out my speaker kits here. All right, so what I like to do is get a little piece of cut a piece out of some hardwood floor. Stuff is great because it's laminate board. It's nice and hard. Okay, I put some 2-way tape down. See, 2-way tape. That's good because what we want to do is just put one of our bases on here. Okay, because of the room we're allowed, we could build 2 speaker chambers. So we're going to have one large one and one small one. Okay, so that's done with just stacking these up like that, and then we'll take the other one here, and the small one, put it there, and we'll take our speaker, we're going to glue it on top there, and then we're going to take the other. So that's what our first one's going to look like, just like that. Okay, see how that's put together? Pretty straightforward. All right, I'm going to glue it. Okay, and then our next one, we'll just take the larger of the 2 spacers, we'll put that on there, and we'll just take our other speaker and we're just going to put it right on top. Okay, I'm going to glue this all together and come back. Well, as I was gluing together, I thought maybe I'd show you a method on what I do. Is the 2-way tape holds these plates in place. Okay, I take a little bit of CA glue, put it on the piece I pulled off from the tape, and I just use resistors because I got so many of them, and you just go along here and just take your CA, put it all along the edge, nice and neat, just like that. Okay, I just go right along. Okay, so now we want to put a large one on one side like that. Press down, and we'll take our thin one here and press down. That's it. That's for one. Okay, and then we're going to add our CA along the edge here. On the edge. Just like that. Okay. Well, I used to cut it right there and make it one big giant chamber, but someone was telling me you don't need to do that, Greg. You just assemble it as is. So now we take our speaker and we want to just get it nice and centered, just like that. press down. I press down and push this way at the same time. Okay. Now we're going to do the other side here. Spin around. We're going to go along here with our CA. If this is boring you, just skip ahead. Just hit fast forward. Some of you might like to watch this. Personally, I would skip ahead. Fast forward is our friend. Alrighty. Okay, now we're just going to take the other top. Wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. There we go. There's one done. Beauty, eh? That's it. Okay, now I'm going to turn the camera off. I'm going to build the other one. Be right back. Okay, now that we have both chambers built, we need to talk about how we're going to put them together, okay? Now, the only time you really need to be concerned about polarity is when you solder your speakers together, okay? LOK doesn't really have a positive negative, so if you go with a single speaker, you just hook it up, and just your two speaker wires just hook it up to either side. Doesn't really matter, but it will matter when you're doing a dual speaker. Reason why is because I have personally found that LOK sounds much better when you wire speakers in a parallel. So that means negative off of the board, which could be either again, there's no positive negative on LOKs, but you take one wire, hook it to this side. So I keep the numbers in view, so they're the same side. So you want to go from this terminal to that terminal, and then this terminal to that terminal. So what you're doing is, because these speakers are in the same direction here, they're going to be wired in a parallel, okay? If you wired them in series, which would mean, let's just say, negative to positive, positive to negative, negative to positive, you're wiring that in series. So you're going to take your ohmage and you're going to double it. It becomes 16 ohms. These are 8 ohm speakers, so we're going to cut it in half. We're going to make these 4 ohms. And LOKs just like to run on 4 ohms. So what I'm going to do is, when I glue these together, I'm going to put them so they're facing the same direction. Okay, I'm going to give these a glue and I'll be right back. Okay, we're back with our BC Rail speaker install. So now we have our chamber all put together, right? It's glued, all glued together. Now we need to talk about getting it into the locomotive, okay? Like we said, is because it's a BC Rail engine, we need to keep the rear shroud here, because it's used to light up the LEDs, to light up the number board and the classification lights. Okay, so this one was a non-sound, so we popped this off. Speaking of which, being a non-sound, just during all your work and soldering process, I personally like to leave the DC board on there, just in case when you're doing any work and you drop something or soldering and you don't want to wreck your brand new decoder, so just leave that one on there for now. Okay, so now we have our speaker. We know we have to get it to fit in here some way. So we're like, oh, well, okay, we got posts in here, right? Well, if we kind of look at it, we know that we can just squeeze it in there if we remove these rear posts. But I don't want to do that. I would much rather remove the posts, okay? So depending on your skill level, you can remove all the electronics off here and hacksaw these off, or personally, I like to take it down to the milling machine and take them off nice and clean, get a nice smooth surface. Or if you got some big ol' ass pliers, you can snap it on there, or okay. Or you can, if you got lots of confidence, then just do it right on here, okay? There are some modelers who will just do it on here. They will just remove the rear shroud, electronics here, and just I will take this off. I've seen guys even just use a moto tool, like a Dremel with a cutting blade on it, and just cut away. I've done that before, so I remove this, and then what I like to do is I'll just take some masking tape and I mask off this, because you know when you're cutting you got all kinds of like shards, you don't want them dropping down into the truck, so mask it all off, take your cutting tool and whatever you like to do. So this could be, you know, not a novice, but we'll call it kind of an advanced mediocre kind of install. All right, so I'm gonna go clean these off and I'll be back. Okay, now what I've done here is I've taken my donor here and I've machined it off, so I like it nice and smooth. I don't mind taking it apart. It's what I'm going to do is take this and swap it over for here, and then we'll begin with our speaker install. There, you can see I've got it all disassembled. I have our decoder motherboard taken off, so all we do now is just lift this right off. And to get this off, really all you gotta do is just the motor plug and the truck plugs, and just leave everything intact. You don't have to take anything else off the board. So there we go. We just swap this over. Everything is identical. You will find on the red barns, the only difference between one like this that we just took off, is on the red barns, this area right here is machined smooth, so it's straight across here. So if you're going to take as a donor like I do, if you're going to do this with a red barn, you'll have to either machine that down or use the red barn and modify it. But okay, that's for another time. So let's just put this back together. We feed the wires back through like this. So easy to do. And we just feed that through here. Your motor word of caution, we've done this once already, is when you put this in, make sure you don't pinch the red wire, which I have done and a friend of mine did. And so when you go to spin the flywheel, it was locked into position. So yep, it's not pinched. So let's continue on here. Okay, I'll get this done up. All right, now we have it all reassembled. Okay, didn't take too long. To me it's fairly easy. I've done so many of these now. And what I've done is I just take a little bit of capped on tape and I just set it down here to keep the wires nice and snug in that channel. Alright, so we do have our speaker assembly, and we know it's going to fit nice and clean right in there, right in between the shroud and this bundle of speakers. Okay, it's all nice and machined, nice and smooth. So what we need to do now is, you notice that non-sound units come with this little plug here, and this is going to be for your speaker. And when you buy these kits from Bowser, they do come with a plug wire. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to have to solder the wires onto here. Okay, and we're going to do that right now. And we need to tin the tops here. Okay, so getting my trusty little board with the two-way tape on it, put that on there. So because when you're touching it with a soldering iron, you don't want it moving, right? Obviously not. So let's heat up the soldering iron and we'll get started. Okay, now we're going to tin our speakers. You only need a tiny little bit on here, so I like to put them on. I'd like to work from the side. That's all you need to do. Just put a little bit on there, put the iron on, rub it around, let that little copper piece heat up, and that's it. just like that. I'll do the other two. Okay, now we're back with finish up here. Is you'll notice that the wires are now soldered in. So they run in parallel, so that I see this pink wire, which represents either positive or negative, but it comes off the motherboard, runs to this terminal, and then jumps over to this terminal. So they're the same side of this on the speakers, okay? And same with the purple. It runs to this terminal, jumps over to this terminal. So they're wired in parallel. When you're soldering, make sure you don't get any solder on this top side of the speaker, okay? Now, I've just put a piece of tape down there just to hold it in place. Then I took some clear tacky, and I'm just going to just run it on the edge here. What I want to do is just kind of just hold the speaker. We don't want to bounce it around. There's a lot of vibration in there, right? So then all I'm doing is just kind of just using the tacky glue just to hold it in place. What's nice is this dries quickly, so good enough. Okay, cool. So that's it for our BC Rail engine. Okay, and that's it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the shell back on, and we'll give it a little test. Okay, here we go. Okay, now we're back, and we have the locomotive now on the test track. So we're going to hit, we got the locomotive number in there. We're going to press F8. Start it up. And before we put the shell on, we want to make sure all our electronics are working. I know they will be because I have big faith in myself. So we want to check out, let's go for class lights because they're colorful. There's our white, our green, our red. Perfect. Okay. Headlight. Yeah, we got headlight. Headlight in the back, and number boards, yep, and number boards here. Okay, we're good there. Reverse light, front light goes out, rear light goes on. Perfect, okay. So we're good. So all our electronics are working. So let's turn it off and put the shell on.